Welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective with Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. Planning for your financial future means navigating challenges like market volatility, inflation, and retirement income. Pankinen Financial Perspective is here to help by addressing common financial concerns, sharing valuable strategies, and exploring ways you can work toward your financial goals. Now let's get started with Pankinen Financial Perspective.
Hello and welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective. My name is Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 952-873-2703 or visit us online at pankinenfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. And while at my website, click on the radio page to check out past shows, to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Also, on my page, click the link at the top to get the latest retirement guide. There's a common assumption out there that once you've spent decades saving for retirement, actually spending that money could feel simple. You did the work, so enjoying it should come naturally. But for a lot of retirees, it doesn't work that way at all. The habits that make you a good saver, like discipline, caution, delayed gratification, don't just switch off the day you retire, and that can leave a lot of hard-earned money sitting untouched longer than it needs to. So today we're pulling from a Kiplinger article headlined, Afraid to Dip into Your Savings? 8 Guilt-Free Ways to Finally Enjoy Your Retirement. It walks you through 8 specific ways retirees can spend with more confidence, from bucket list travel to giving back without feeling like they're doing something wrong. Let me bring in my co-host, Tony Shore, who's here to give us insight and observations.
I am, and I'm excited about this topic. It may seem unusual for a financial advisor like yourself, Ashton, to be telling our listeners, hey, spend money, dip into that savings. But I have talked with so many advisors over the years that say that they have to. I was just talking to a guy, I don't know if you've met him, Dan Wendell down in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to him, and he's been a financial advisor for a long time. He said, I have to give my clients permission to spend. Yes. A lot of them need what I call permission to spend, which seems counterintuitive to a lot of us. Like, permission to spend, I need help saving at this point.
Permission to stop spending. No.
Yeah. Or some people need to be told not to spend. Yeah. But a lot of people are diligent about saving throughout their working years. They've got a big 401k, IRA. Maybe they also inherit money or are lucky enough to have a pension. But that's why this topic is going to be a good one, because I saw this happen with both my grandfather and my mother-in-law, where they wouldn't spend a penny, and they were so afraid they'd run out of money. And I don't mean to pick on my mother-in-law, a great person, but 90 years old. Well, let's go back. She was 85, Ashton. Yeah. 85 years old and kind of slowing down, afraid to spend a dime.
Yeah.
Had hundreds of thousands of dollars, plenty of money to last the rest of her life, right?
Well, again, it's a habit. You know, you've been saving, you've been frugal your whole life, and it's hard to turn on that switch of spending. And, and that's what we try and do, is give you that permission to do that. And again, I've got clients that come to me, and I'm glad they do, and say, hey, Ashton, can we afford to do this? And, we have that conversation. And of course, most scenarios they can.
Yeah, that's what's surprising. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to have to keep working another 5 years. I don't have the money to retire. And you're like, you could have retired last year. Have you ever done that? I mean, have you ever?
Sure. We've got clients who assume that 65, just because of having to pay for that Medicare, or health insurance costs before Medicare kicks in. So a lot of clients assume they can't do it before 65 because of that. And again, it's that frugality, that saving mentality where, realistically they could retire at 62 based on the numbers we sit down with, but they just don't want to have to fork out that health insurance money. But again, if we can come up with a plan to let them know that, hey, you're going to be okay. Sometimes they do decide to retire early and enjoy a few more years of retirement.
Yeah, and you touch on something that I think has come up in other shows, but you do have to look out for that, though, if you retire before 65, because health insurance is outrageously expensive, especially now, right?
Yeah, and it just seems like it just keeps going up, and I don't know what the answer will be, but definitely something you have to plan for.
Yeah. Now, before we get into it, I know you've been a busy guy there. Everything going good? I know you've been meeting with folks. You love to hear from people, right?
Yeah. We've been busy. Last weekend, we celebrated a couple birthdays in the area here. It was my wife's birthday on the 23rd, my office assistant Kayla's birthday on the 24th, and then my birthday on the 25th. So last Saturday. And so,
oh, wow. Yeah.
We were busy with that here at the office.
It's what, 29 and you're 30? Is that?
Yeah. How'd you know, Tony? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. You don't look a day over 30.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, and I tease her because she's 2 days older than me.
Oh, jeez.
And so I tease her that she robbed the cradle, real.
Yeah. This is being recorded right now.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure you understood that she could possibly hear this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Before you dig yourself too. Yeah.
No,
she doesn't listen. But no, that's funny. You give her a hard time about that. That's funny.
So we had a good weekend there, and typical. We talked about this for Father's Day as well. My kids' gifts to me were
for your birthday.
My birthday. I got some Sour Patch Kids again from the one daughter who got me Sour Patch Kids last time.
Because she knows she'll get the Sour Patch Kids.
Yes, she'll get some of the Sour Patch Kids. They get you
gifts they can use. I love that. Yeah.
My son got me targets for like shooting targets. And they were Battleship ones, so they're actually pretty cool. And it's something we do shoot together. We shoot BB guns together and stuff.
Oh,
so
fun!
Something we can enjoy together. And then my youngest got me Tannerite, which I think Mom helped with. And so that's again something you can shoot with a gun, kind of explode and stuff. And so, it was good. It was a fun birthday.
That's funny.
Again, always interesting to see what they.
I'll never forget.
Come up with.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I think this is what you said maybe for Father's Day or another one, but my son, Adam, would get me a Lego kit, and then he would put it together.
Yeah, that's what we had going on here too.
Yeah. I love that. Or candy, like Sour Patch Kids, which I don't like, but they love. So it's like, okay, here's I see.
And don't get me wrong, I don't mind having a Sour Patch Kid here or there, but it's definitely not on my list.
Yeah. And then my wife says, "Oh, and our youngest, when they're 3, and they had nothing to do with it, gets like, here's a new tool so you can build a flower bed." Or a thing to put flowers in. Oh,
so
okay.
Sneak something in there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. That's happening too. I look at her and roll my eyes. Yeah. So a lot of people have bucket list items and things that they might want to do in retirement that they might need permission. Maybe their parents were from the Depression era. Like that's where my mother-in-law and my grandfather, I think the reason they never wanted to spend a penny of their money is because of that, because their parents didn't spend money. But let's start with, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with travel, since it's probably the most common bucket list item people bring up with me.
Sure. It seems like everybody wants to take that trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, they do. And speaking from my own experience, many of our clients are eager for that memorable trip during retirement. Maybe it's seeing the Northern Lights in Iceland, a safari across the Serengeti, whatever that dream trip looks like for that person. And data backs it up on just how common this is. There's an AARP article that 3/4 of travelers in their 50s have a bucket list trip in mind, along with 7 out of 10 people in their 60s, and then 6 out of 10 people 70 and older.
Yeah, mine's Ireland. So I'm half Irish and I want to go to Ireland. Yeah. So it's not just a handful of people out there daydreaming. A lot of people are picturing something specific then for retirement or travel.
Yeah, many do. But here's the part that concerns me a little. About 1 in 5 people that have that dream trip in mind actually never take it. One of the top reasons cited is that health issues that come up later in life.
Yeah, because they wait too long or are afraid to pull the trigger, and that could mean missing the window entirely.
Yeah, and that's the risk. If that trip financially realistic once you've retired, it may be worth prioritizing it sooner than later. While health and mobility are still on your side, I've had clients that tell me they wish they would have booked that trip 5 years earlier than they did. I've had a couple clients who, I'm a neuropathy in my feet. I don't travel anymore because I can't feel them. So again, it's something you want to take a look at getting done earlier while you're young and healthy.
Yeah. That's a good argument for not waiting. Is there a way to plan one of these big trips in a way that sticks to the reality of a retirement budget, though?
Yeah, there is. Usually, it comes down to looking at guaranteed income sources like Social Security, maybe any pensions that you have, layering in some sustainable withdrawal rates from the savings, and then just seeing what's left over for that discretionary spending like travel. And that number is going to be different for everyone, which is why it tends to be a conversation worth having with your financial advisor rather than just a rule of thumb kind of applied across the board for everyone.
Sure. And I think that makes sense. So what's next on the list?
Well, let's stick with travel for a moment. Let's talk about family trips specifically. It's a little different from that solo bucket list adventure. Picture that multi-generational trip, including grandparents, kids, maybe grandkids, all together under one roof or maybe on one cruise ship. A lot of people picture this kind of trip for years, but keep putting it off because cost or logistics and coordinating schedules, especially with kids' travel ball and all this stuff nowadays, just isn't necessarily easy. But time spent together as a family tends to create memories that matter more than just almost anything money can buy.
I would agree. And that is one thing that my mother-in-law did for her kids and their children and the grandkids, took us all to Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
Finally got convinced, got to do it. And it created so many memories. And those are the great times.
For sure.
And that's what I remember with my family as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and generally the pattern we see when money goes towards something like those experiences you talk about there, Tony, and that connection rather than just material things, people tend to look back with satisfaction rather than regret on spending that money.
Yeah.
And, if it fits comfortably within the budget and brings some genuine joy, it can be a reasonable way to put retirement savings to use. And this could also mean covering costs for family members who couldn't otherwise afford to join. Common part of the process of the planning this multi-generational trip, and it's worth considering ahead of time so it doesn't strain that budget too much in just one big hit. And, some people do have a dedicated travel fund each year specifically for this purpose. So the cost could be spread out and expected rather than a surprise.
Yeah. Well, and does it matter how the trip gets paid for in terms of which account the money comes from or where it comes from?
It can, just depending on your overall situation. Pulling from a taxable brokerage account might have different tax consequences than pulling from a traditional IRA, for example. And so again, it's worth thinking through the order at which the accounts get tapped and not just whether the trip itself is affordable. And again, if that trip's coming up in March, does it make sense to pull some this year and pull some in January just
Sure.
for tax reasons?
Yeah. Yeah. And those are useful details. So what's the next guilt-free spending idea?
Yeah. So investing in your health, and I want to frame this one carefully because it's not just an indulgence. It can also be a genuinely smart financial move. So healthcare costs in retirement are often eye-popping and they can sneak up on people. In the article, it explains that Fidelity Investments puts an annual estimate in a 2025 survey found that 65-year-old on Medicare could expect to spend around $174,000 of out-of-pocket on healthcare in the remainder of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. So that would be sticker shock for some people. That's a big number. It's good to know about that, but it's kind of shocking.
It is, and it's been steadily climbing. The estimate was $165,000 the year before that.
Oof.
And back when Fidelity first started tracking this over 2 decades ago, the figure was closer to $80,000. So staying healthy isn't just about that quality of life. It could also mean avoiding a chunk of expenses down the road. And that's a connection I hope our listeners can make. Spending on things like gym memberships, healthier groceries, outdoor gear isn't necessarily frivolous. It may be more practical investment a retiree can actually make for both how they feel today and for what they might be avoid spending on medical costs later on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. I like that reframe you just did. It's less like spending then and more like a form of insurance.
I think that's a fair way to think about it. Even if something as simple as a daily walking routine or joining a community fitness class could pay off in ways that show up on a future medical bill or maybe don't show up on that medical bill. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive things. Walking outside doesn't cost you anything. And then for those who have a health savings account, there can be some connection here as well. For example, if you contributed to a health savings account during your working years, those funds may be available to help cover exactly these kinds of costs, whether that's a new pair of walking shoes recommended by a physical therapist, maybe a membership at a wellness center that qualifies as an eligible expense. So it's worth checking with a tax professional on what specifically qualifies before you know if an expense is covered or not.
Yeah, and I know you work alongside tax professionals and you do tax planning as it relates to retirement income and retirement plans and overall financial plans. I think that's huge. Now, let's make sure our listeners out there know how to get a hold of you really quick before we move on.
Yeah, it's a good idea. If any of this is making you think about your own retirement strategy or anything else we've covered today, give us a call, 952-873-2703. Again, that number is 952-873-2703. You can visit our website, pankoninfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com to set up a complimentary consultation. We'd welcome the chance to look at your full picture with you.
Yeah. All right. I think we're on the fourth one. What else should we be looking at here as far as spending in retirement?
Yeah, chasing hobbies and interests. This one's close to my heart because I think it connects something bigger than just money, and that's purpose. One of the biggest predictors of a satisfying retirement is having a reason to get up in the morning. For some people, that's golf or pickleball. For others, maybe it's a painting classes, woodworking, or just finally learning an instrument they set aside years ago.
Yeah, and I know my mother-in-law, who I talked about, she's 90 and she's taking a Spanish class.
Oh, wow.
To learn a new language, right? Yeah. And I think that's so good because that helps stave off, it makes you work mentally. It's a mental activity that helps stave off things like Alzheimer's or slow down dementia. But I think some people do feel guilty spending money on some of these things, hobbies, because it feels optional, almost like a luxury.
Yeah, it can feel optional on the surface, but investing in a hobby that keeps you engaged, mentally active, is worth that serious consideration. Reading, learning, trying new things, these tend to hold their value in a way that a lot of material purchases simply don't. And while the gear or equipment for the hobby might depreciate, the purpose behind it doesn't. So let's not forget that it doesn't have to be inexpensive to matter. Something like a set of watercolor paints and a few classes at the community center. We're not saying you have to go get a boat or a country club membership or some of those expensive hobbies either.
Sure. Well, yeah. And am I right that this can also play into an overall well-being in retirement and not just talking about how you spend an afternoon, right?
Yeah, indeed. Having a hobby or project tends to correlate better with outcomes across the board, from mood to general sense of satisfaction with retirement. It gives structure to a week that may no longer have any, with that workplace setting being removed, and that structure that's automatically implemented by having a job. So again, it's important to have that structure and something to do.
Sure, it would be. Now, what's another guilt-free thing we can spend on in retirement?
Well, one of the things you can look at doing is helping people you love, and this can be a big one. There's some tax angles worth understanding before we write that check. But let's say you have kids or grandkids still working through school. 529 college savings account could be a meaningful way to help. Contributions can grow tax-free, and withdrawals used for qualified education expenses can come out tax-free.
Yeah. And there might be a state tax benefit too, right?
Yeah, in many states, the contributor may be eligible for state income tax deduction or a tax credit. And Minnesota is one of those states. Most of our listeners are probably tuning in here in Minnesota. On top of that, a 529 can double as an estate planning tool. Unused funds may be eligible to roll into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary under certain conditions, and then limits as well, annual limits. So again, if you have tax questions or concerns, a lot of times we work with a CPA tax professional to make sure we get that financial strategy figured out. And if you don't have a tax professional, we do refer to some people that we would recommend to help you out as well.
Yeah. Well, what about lending a hand or money for something more immediate, like helping a loved one with a down payment on a first home, or helping a loved one maybe co-host go on a trip to Ireland, pay for that? How would you do that, Ashton?
Yeah, no, I've actually we just had a client help their kid with their first home purchase. And so it's a decision that many people face, and there are options to address it. For 2026, an individual could gift up to $19,000 to any one person without needing to report it to the IRS. And for a married couple, that figure becomes then $38,000. And again, that's just to not have to report it to the IRS. If you want to give more than that in a single year, amounts above that exclusion amount count against your lifetime gift tax exemption, which is in 2026 is $15 million for an individual and $30 million for a married couple. And so again, most people aren't going to be hitting those numbers, and they worry that they can only gift that $19,000. They can give more than that. It's just you have to report it on your taxes if you do, to go against that lifetime gift tax exclusion. And those figures can shift due to new legislation or future inflation adjustments. Anyone considering larger gifts should check with the current numbers and talk through it with a tax professional before moving forward.
All right. Well, let's jump to the next one on our list. What's number 6 on that guilt-free list?
Investing in your own home, this can feel like a practical one and maybe less emotional than others, especially if the goal is aging in place comfortably. You know, whether that's a bathroom remodel, a kitchen update, or adding a deck or extra room, there's often real return involved on top of just being able to simply enjoy that upgraded space every day. There's some data from Zillow highlighted in the article. A homeowner may recoup around 96% of the cost of a kitchen remodel and around about 75% of a bathroom renovation, though actual returns can vary quite a bit depending on the local market and specific project.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it can. So I think that's a big one. I think a lot of people want to do that, right? I know that my wife and I are looking to do that, hopefully before we retire, but maybe once we retire, we'll need to do something like that. I know we need a bathroom remodel. Maybe recommend somebody. Always looking for somebody good to do that. Yeah. And nothing is guaranteed, but historically, home upgrades tend to hold a lot of value, right?
Yeah, it's a fair summary, you know, and just beyond that resale math, there's the everyday benefit of living in the space that works better for your needs, especially as those needs change with age. You know, things like the walk-in showers, grab bars, wider doorways aren't glamorous, but they can matter a great deal later in that day-to-day life. And there's a point where renovations stop being potentially smart investments and start being just personal preference project. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not every upgrade needs to be penciled out financially to be worthwhile. The key is to just be honest with, is that upgrade really going to be beneficial? And does it fit into our budget or not? And that's the assumption that every dollar spent will come back at resale.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we're on number 7 now. What's that?
Giving back is number 7. Charitable giving is one of the more selfless ways to put retirement savings to work. And there are more than 2 million charitable organizations across the country that you could support. When it comes to giving, one of the potentially tax smart option worth considering is a donor advised fund, sometimes called a DAF or a DAF. It's a charitable account that lets you contribute assets, potentially receive a tax deduction for that contribution, and then recommend grants to specific charities over time rather than all at once. So there's several kind of assets that can go into these funds, including cash, stock, real estate, fine art, and some other cases, even cryptocurrency. Those specific rules and eligibility can vary by provider. It's strategy that's worth discussing with a financial advisor and or your tax professional to see whether it's a good fit for your broader goals and overall plan.
Yeah, not for everyone, but it might be. And I imagine that could be really appealing if you want to support a cause, but aren't ready to decide exactly which organizations get the money right away then.
That can be part of the appeal. It separates the decision to give from the decision of exactly where to give and where the money goes, which can take some of that pressure off. It also allows for larger, more strategic gifts in years when it might make sense from a tax standpoint, such as maybe a year where unusually high capital gains, while actual grants to charities can be spread over several years afterwards. So again, the timing of the deduction and the timing of the giving don't have to match up exactly. And that's what the flexibility part is about and what makes donor advised fund appealing to people who want to be thoughtful about their taxes and their giving.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, I think that brings us to number 8 on the list. What's the last item on that guilt-free spending list?
Buying back your time. So for example, on this, think about all the things people do themselves to save money during their working years. Maybe mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, spending hours hunting for the cheapest flight when there's with 3 layovers. Once retirement arrives, a lot of people still feel like they need to keep doing all that themselves, even though the reason for doing it may no longer apply.
Yeah. Even though you might have more free time than ever and less need to pinch every dollar, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of ironic, paying for landscaping, house cleaning, or other services that remove that daily drudgery isn't laziness. It's a way of protecting time and energy for things that matter most, whether that's a hobby, family, or just simply rest. In retirement, time often becomes resource you're managing instead of just money.
Yeah.
Again, you want to treat that time like it's valuable, which it is. And that shift tends to happen naturally once you give yourself permission to make it. It's rarely about the dollar amount of service being purchased. It's about what purchases free you up to do instead. And that's really a shift running through this whole list. Retirement savings exist to support life, not just to sit in an account collecting statements that nobody reads closely.
Yeah, good point. I think that's a great point. And I think this feels like a good time before we wrap up here for our weekly reminder. How can our listeners out there get a hold of you?
Yeah, if anything we've talked about today has you thinking about your own plan, whether it's travel, helping family, giving back, or anything in between, reach out to us. Give us a call here, 952-873-2703. Again, that number is 952-873-2703. Visit us online at pankinonfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. A conversation with someone who understands your full financial picture can help you figure out guilt-free spending could look like for you specifically.
Okay. Well, let's bring it back around. You talked about 8 ways here to spend without the guilt, which is good. And those were bucket list travel, family trips, investing in your health, chasing hobbies, helping loved ones, upgrading your home, maybe giving back and buying back your time. I think those are all worthy.
Yeah, that's the list. And the theme running through it all is that spending with intention isn't the opposite of good financial planning. It's often part of it. So if you've done the work of saving and investing over the years, it's worth putting just as much thought into how you enjoy that money. A realistic monthly budget paired with room to celebrate along the way tends to serve people well over the long run.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Well, now one more time before we go, why don't you give that phone number and web address again, if our listeners have any questions or they want to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation with you and the team there.
Yeah, give us a call, Pankin Financial Group, 952-873-2703. Again, that number is 952-873-2703. Visit us online at pankinonfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of the Pankin Financial Perspective with our host, Ashton Pankin.
Thank you for joining us for Pankin Financial Perspective. Don't head into retirement without a plan for both your finances and your health. For more information, contact Ashton Pankin at Pankin Financial Group at 952-873-2703 or visit pankinfinancialgroup.com. Join us again soon for another episode of Pankin Financial Perspective. Advisory services are offered by Ashton Pankin LLC DBA Pankin Financial Group, an investment advisor in the state of Minnesota.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.